How you going? Welcome back to Unga Gothi Journals. On today's video, I wanted to talk more about my journey so far, and a little on what it's like to practice Norse-based spirituality down here in Australia. Growing up in country town Australia, my first run-in with spirituality, like many other kids, unbeknownst to them, was that special time of year where a red shaman named Santa comes and leaves presents under the tree. Or perhaps that magical bunny that leaves chocolate eggs. Christmas and Easter, deeply spiritual, pagan rituals performed every year without even a second thought. But my first run-in with organised religion, on the other hand, came through the public school system religious education program. Now, the name religious education is incredibly deceptive. It implies plural, more than one. But no, 5 and 6-year-olds were handed junior Bibles and were told about Jesus, killed for his sins, and God, the magnificent, omnipresent one God. Now, as a child, you absorb all of this information. Of course your teachers wouldn't lie to you. Of course your teachers would tell you the truth. Why wouldn't I believe them? So, now I'm a 6-year-old Christian who believes in a magical shaman and a giant bunny, along with many others like the Tooth Fairy. The concept of polytheism seeded even as far back as my youth, right under my nose. Now, death became a concept brought to light by these beliefs. If you live a good life and continue to do good things, you'll be permitted into paradise, be with your friends and your family. But if you continue to be a little shit, a bad person, you will eternally suffer and go chill with Satan in a pit of lava. This is heavy shit for a 6-year-old to take on. So as time went on, kids being kids, the older boys were picking on me, telling me the devil was going to eat my brains. That scared the shit out of me. I went up to the teacher and I asked, "Is the devil real?" And she looked at me and says, "Of course he is." Well, shit. Now my brains are going to be eaten and the devil's real. That did something to me that day. That fucked me up. Now, my mum was always very eclectic and open-minded. Liked to dabble with divination, witchcraft. She was the first to tell me that there was more out there than just God and Jesus, that there was more than one path. This run-in with so-called religion scared me so deeply that even the sight of Jesus hanging on the wall at a friend's house left me feeling very disturbed. So I chose to turn my back on everything. As I got older, we moved closer to the sea. First time living on the water. I began high school in a new environment with new people, and I started a new life. I always struggled with school, and high school wasn't any easier. I didn't care about anything. I didn't care about what I put in my body. I didn't care about the earth. I didn't care about the universe. I had a very negative outlook on life and society. I went through a lot of crap over those years. Lessons had to be learned. But by late year 9, I'd let my physical health deteriorate. My mental health slipped to the point of suicidal ideation. I stopped going to school, isolated myself from my friends. I was in a bad place. But in this time, my mum gave me her bag of runes. Elder Futhark runes. Didn't think too much of it at first. Kept the bag in my room. Never gave it much thought. But one particularly bad night came around, and I laid in my bed, cursing everything. I had so much hate in me. But at the crescendo of the night, I almost had this outer body experience, this inner third-party influence. Why am I sad? And weirdly, it snapped me out of it. It sounds so simple, but it led me to question my own depression. I think I realized I had allowed myself to slip into this spiral pattern of sadness and hate, and it became more comfortable to live that way. Shit had to change, so I reached for that bag of Elder Futhark runes and started digging for wisdom. I knew nothing at this point. Just had a book written by Ralph Blum. It wasn't very great, but it was a beginning. But in this book, there was a picture of a grey-bearded man hanging by his foot from a tree, poking a puddle of water, seeing the runes and the ripples. Odin on Yggdrasil, it was called. It fascinated me. That led me to the Havamal, the words of the High One, which led me to the Eddas, which led me to the sagas, continuing on to sources like Germania, just absorbing all of this knowledge. And during this time, I realized people still believed in these ancient things. A YouTuber, which I will link his channel in the description, I owe some of my greatest thanks to, Nordic Journeys. He was one of the first people I ever heard lay out the concepts of believing in these things, believing in these ancient gods in contemporary times, in a way that clicked with me. So I began to practice. I started speaking to the All-Father at night, outside staring at the stars, burying offerings in my backyard, slowly just trying to learn what I can with the information I had access to. I started doing more research into my ancestry and family history, which was always very English and Scottish, learning about Anglo-Saxon culture, Anglo-Frisian culture, eventually leading to Proto-Indo-European culture and all that connects to. I found a deep passion with working with my hands, connecting to the dwarves through craft, making Viking axes and pendants. It also allowed me to deepen my connection with my stepfather through manual arts, learning skills that I still use to this day. Nature became more than a backdrop. It became my portal to the gods. The seasons became my gateways. I began to heal myself. I went back to school as a whole different person. I came back to life with a whole new attitude. On a trip back to the old country town which I grew up in, I went into the old blacksmith there and came out with my Mjolnir. I donned that hammer and called myself a Norse pagan. I'd finished school. Adult life had begun, and along with it your beliefs evolve. And no longer was everything so literal. The gods weren't so much above nature, they became nature. No longer was I looking through the tree, I was looking at the tree, into the tree. So in this, the gods became metaphors, personifications. But in this, they became even more physical. Odin became wisdom, inspiration, spiritual ecstasy. The reason he wanders Midgard was because wisdom spreads from person to person, town to town. Thor became our hearty strength, and the thunder in our sky, bringing the summer rains and scaring away the Jotuns that embodies the chaos in our universe. And Frey became the seed that fertilizes our fields with bountiful crops that gives us food and life. And around this time, I decided to follow in the footsteps of the All-Father and left home to find my destiny. I hitchhiked north, making it as far as southeast Queensland before I found the next stage of my life. In this time, I also began to experiment with psychedelics, furthering that spiritual development. They were all so much more connected than we think. Going out and picking my own psilocybin cubensis, learning to ID shrooms, mycology became another way to connect with the earth, as well as the gods. As even the mycologist Paul Stamets has linked pagan ritual drumming in low bass frequencies to aiding the mycelial networks. The YouTuber Jared Wright, who made The Big Les Show, became a person I deeply looked up to for his views on the universe and his psychedelic experimentation. Lessons of mateship and open-mindedness were really positive things for me to take into my life at that time. Knowledge on the Norse pagan path had become readily available. YouTubers like Norse Magic and Beliefs and Jacob Todson and Northwoods Kindred were making videos about history, beliefs, rituals of the old ways. It started to become clear I needed to find my tribe, my people, have people to cultivate wisdom with. In late 2023, I finally found my tribe. With a genuine stroke of fate, I stumbled upon the Drengir of the South Instagram after a rather large hiatus from social media. And what I saw was a group of people made up of real families, getting out there in nature, finally doing what I've always dreamed to do. So I reached out. I made deep connections with the Drengir,
fostering unbreakable bonds.
And exactly what I wanted began to naturally happen. The cultivation of wisdom. The path constantly grows and changes shape. No longer a solo practitioner, I was now part of a kindred. Concepts like shamanism, utisita, and many more began to become part of my spiritual UPG. There was so much I haven't touched on, but I felt this summed things up nicely. And now that brings us up to the present. I am now the Unga Gothi of the Drengir of the South. I'm learning how to write and perform better rituals with our Gothi, Lee. We are to see Heilung in November and Wardruna in January, which will be phenomenal. And now I've begun Unga Gothi journals to house what has been learned and what is to be learned. I am excited to have you join alongside me on this journey. Now, seriously, thank you guys for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. It meant a lot to make this one, just to put myself out there. If anyone has any synchronicities or similar experiences, please let's talk about it in the comments. I want you guys to look after yourselves, and until the next one, I'm going to leave you with these words from my dear friend Frokenscold. This is his rendition of the Havamal, the Drover's Havamal. It's important for a bloke to ride out far and wide, spin a yarn with those you meet in the bush. That's how you'll learn a thing or two about the world.